Hello and welcome. Today I bring to you the history of a man I never got to meet, my great granddad. I'm now going to hand you over to my aunt and mother, who will tell you his history before, during and after World War II.
Arthur Edward Leonard Ponting, Gramps as we called him. Well, he was born in 1909, so he grew up through the Depression after the First World War. And in 1925, I found he was a greaser and an oiler on the Great Western Railways. So he started really young into work, but all that mechanical side of things. He then, from there, was promoted up, and he actually became a wagon and engine lifter. So you can imagine that on the steam trains, because that's what it would have been then. So quite skilled and heavy work that he was involved in, and that was 1939. That one, which was just before the start of the war, when they did a big census that everybody was recorded in the country, so they knew who they had and who was around. I think it was planning purposes to make sure food and goodness knows what else was done. But after that, RAF Rawton was opened in 1940, and Gramp moved up to there. Now, Rawton itself was a maintenance unit as well as a hospital. There was a hospital there as well, but there was two maintenance units at Rawton. One was number 15 maintenance unit, which is where Gramp worked. So their responsibility was for dismantling and reassembling aircraft. So aircraft were brought to Rawton, and they were made all over the country. And there was even down in Swindon, just outside Swindon, Stanton Fitzwarren, there was a Vickers Armstrong factory which made Spitfires. So things like that would come all boxed, and they'd come up to Rawton, and they'd put them together to get them for dispersal off to other airfields. And in some cases, they would be flown in by the ladies in I think it was the ATS, brought them in, would fly them in, and then they would be dismantled to then be shipped out to different parts of the world and to our allies and things like that. So Gramp was involved in a lot of that, of the dismantling and reassembling of aircraft. I've got some pictures of him. Mosquitoes were probably one of the biggest aircraft that they did there. They did do lots of different aircraft, Lancasters and Wellingtons and just lots of different ones, but Mosquitoes was one of them as well. They wanted a lot of transport round in the war. So Gramp used to cycle to catch the bus, the service bus up to Rawton. So he used to cycle, oh goodness knows how many miles, really early in the morning. I think they had to be up there for something like I think it was 6 in the morning, and they finished, or something like, or he left at 6 in the morning, and they didn't finish work till about 8 at night, so he wasn't getting home until about 9-10 o'clock at night.
He was also in Dad's army. He was a home guard round Swindon and Rawton and Stanton Fitzwarren, depending where he lived or where he was working. He took part in those, mostly at Stanton, which was a village near Swindon, and he spent a lot of his time on patrol at night.
And after the war, aircraft started to progress. Towards the end of the war, there was the jet engine, so there was a lot of research going into that, and then the need for oxygen at higher altitude. So Gramp was involved in a lot of that research that went on, and also he became an instructor, especially in the oxygen side of things. So, and I've got a picture with a banner behind saying about oxygen being needed at high altitude for the pilots. So he became an instructor in teaching others about the pressure and the oxygen system. So again, got photos for that. And what is really interesting is that, and I didn't know this until I started looking through the photos, is that he also worked on the Canberra. Now, the Canberra was an English electric aircraft, which was one of our first high altitude bombers, and it came in about the 50s, I think it was. And he worked on those, got a picture with him, one of the very first one. But the Canberra, was a high altitude bomber, but then was found to be a very stable platform for photo reconnaissance. And because it can fly at such a high altitude, really, really good. It wasn't detected, could take, the camera systems were amazing. And that's what I ended up working with, was the Canberra when I went to RAF Witten, and also in Germany, and also in the first Gulf War. We worked with the Canberras, still being used in 2000. I think they were eventually retired in about 2004. So there's a big link that I didn't realise that he worked on the cameras. But going back to the war, he also went out to different units. I remember him telling me that he had to go down to Plymouth to work on some of the aircraft. It was the Fairey Swordfish, which were the aircraft used on a lot of our naval aircraft carriers, and some of them were launched from them as well. So he had to go down because the sea, all the salt water from sea was corroding the control wires. So he had to go down and replace them. So he got about a bit, did Gramps, and had a lot of involvement with, as I say, putting aircraft back together. And also from Rawton, a lot was involved with the Battle of Britain, with making sure the Spitfires and the Hurricanes were serviceable and put together. They were flown in, repaired, and then flown back out again. The big Lancasters, the Wellingtons, which came before the Lancasters.
Thank you to both my aunt and mother. I'm now going to step in here and finish off. After the war, for his service, my great-granddad, Arthur Edward Leonard Ponting, was issued commendations for both his service as a mechanic and a home guard. He did what his country called upon him to do, and for this I am forever grateful.